History Chapter 2, Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution, Part 4. In 1914, a war broke out, and this war in the history is known as the First World War. World War First began in 1914 after the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and lasted until 1918. During the conflict, there were two groups: Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire of Turkey. This group fought against Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, etc. And later on, United States also entered in the First World War through this group. By the time the war was over and the Allied powers claimed victory, more than 16 million people, soldiers and civilians alike, were dead. There were far-reaching effects of the First World War on Russia. Actually, Russia entered in the war without any proper preparation. The war was initially popular and people supported Tsar Nicholas II. But slowly and slowly, support became thin, and by 1917, over 7 million casualties were there for Russia. Russian army lost badly in Germany and Austria between 1914 and 1916. Hence, many people were in support of withdrawing from the war. The war also had a severe impact on Russian industry. Russia's own industries were few in number, and the country was cut off from other suppliers of industrial goods by German control of the Baltic Sea. As a result, during the war, Russian industry was severely impacted, and they were not able to get raw material and other necessary things for industry properly. The February Revolution in Petrograd. In the winter of 1917, conditions in the capital, Petrograd, were grim. In February 1917, food shortages were deeply felt in the workers' quarters. The winter was very cold. On 22nd Feb, a lockout took place at a factory on the right bank. The next day, workers in 50 factories called a strike in sympathy. In many factories, women led the way to strikes. This came to be called the International Women's Day. And slowly, conditions were totally against the Russian king. On Sunday, 25th Feb, the government suspended the Duma. As a result, politicians also became against and spoke out against the steps. Demonstrators returned in force to the streets of the left bank on the 26th. On the 27th Feb, the police headquarters were attacked by the public. The very next day, a delegation went to see the Tsar. Military commanders advised the king to abdicate the throne. He followed their advice and abdicated on 2nd March. Soviet leaders and Duma leaders formed a provisional government to run the country. Petrograd had led the Feb Revolution that brought down the monarchy in Feb 1917. In 1917 April, the Bolshevik leader Vladimir Lenin returned to Russia from his exile. He and the Bolsheviks had opposed the war since 1914. Now he felt it was time for Soviets to take over power. Hence, Lenin made some demands. These demands are famous as April Thesis. Lenin declared that the war be brought to a close, land must be transferred to the peasants, and banks should be nationalized. These three demands were Lenin's April Thesis. The provisional government, which was formed after Feb Revolution of 1917, could not fulfill the demands of the people. As a result, again there was revolution in Russia, and this in the history of Russia is known as the Revolution of October 1917. As the conflict between the provisional government and the Bolsheviks grew, Lenin feared the provisional government would set up a dictatorship. So in September, he began discussions for an uprising against the government. On 16 October 1917, Lenin persuaded the Petrograd Soviet and the Bolshevik Party to agree to a socialist seizure of power. The uprising began on 24th October 1917. Sensing trouble, Prime Minister Kerensky left the city to summon troops. There was heavy fighting between two groups, but by December the Bolsheviks controlled the Moscow-Petrograd area, and the revolution of October 1917 completed. Government was changed. New government was formed under the leadership of Lenin. We shall continue next topics of Russian Revolution in next video. Thanks for watching the channel. Subscribe the channel www.youtube.com/ramsharmalive. You can also visit website www.freeteach.in.